Ma'am, we are live.
Thank you, Yashi. Good morning, everyone, and happy Women's Day to all of you. We are gathered here today to have a discussion panel on feminist jurisprudence and women rights in India. The theme for International Women's Day 2022 is Break the Bias. Biases that are soaked in prejudices, exploitation, and unfortunately, history of 1,000 years. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a panel of strong, bold, and influential women who have made immense contribution to development of women rights in India. And today, we are honored to have them with us and to have the opportunity to know their journey and the principles and the history that guides them to being the person that they are today. I would first want to introduce Dr. Gitanjali Chandra, who is the Chief Learning Officer of LEDEX Legal EduTech, and she will be the one moderating this session. And in addition to that, I'm honored to introduce the guest for today's session. First and foremost, I would like to introduce Advocate Abha Singh, who is a former civil servant and currently advocate of Bombay High Court. She is also a social activist and she has made immense contribution in the realm of women rights, gender equality, and justice. Abha ma'am has launched her book Stree Dasha or Disha, which promotes women empowerment by highlighting real-time cases and their legal recourse. I'm sure we will all have a lot to learn from you today, ma'am. I would like to introduce the second guest of today's session, Kavita Krishnan ma'am. She is the secretary of All India Progressive Women's Association and also a member of Communist Party of India. She
Marxist
is women
Leninist,
rights,
CPIM. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
CPIM. She's
MN.
also a women rights activist. Ma'am is also a person that I would personally like to introduce on this front. She was the face of the protest that took place after the horrid Nirbhaya gang rape case. I mean, I remember that I used to follow that case and her speeches and her articles and her views during that entire movement were something that inspired me as a law student. So I'm honored to have you here, ma'am. And without much further ado, I would hand over the mic to Dr. Gitanjali Chandra, and ma'am, we may initiate this session, which I'm sure the entire audience is looking forward to. Thank you.
So thank you, Rashmi, and welcome once again, both of you. The both of the I'm sitting in front, like, and talking to the strongest women is the blessing which I have received from the God directly. That the strongest women now today, I got the opportunity from the LEDEX that I am talking to strongest female of this society of India. So today's the objective of panel is obviously celebrating Women's Day, and other than that, the celebrating these two strong women, who we can call the voice of the mass. Both are authors, both are activists, and both are fighting for justice for our Indian society. So my first question, I will try to ask to both of you the same question. So like I will start with, both of you have raised and by a strong and highly qualified mother. Is this the only reason to be strong? So I'll start with Ava ma'am.
Not the only reason, but a very important reason, I would say, because if I think of my mother, she did her master's in history from Allahabad University in the year 1961. She says there was a time when girls from her community, her family background, were married off by the time they reached seventh, eighth. But my mom says she wore a sari from fourth standard. She studied in a public school in Allahabad, but that was the traditional that they said, okay, if you want to go to school, you have to wear a sari. She wore a sari from fourth standard, completed her master's, wanted to take the civil services, but she says your dad said, you know what is a word, quote unquote, कि मेरी कमाई में क्या तुम्हारा पेट नहीं भरेगा. A woman working at that time, nobody could think of it. So here was a mother who was brilliant. She used to write for newspapers, but she didn't take the civil services. Her own real brothers are in the IAS UP cadre. Her two real brothers ranked 4th and 16th. So she would have definitely made it, the family she came from. So, but then she made a promise to herself that my girls are going to be civil servants. My girls are going to be what I could not achieve. And the result is today I cleared the civil services. My younger sister is commissioner income tax. She handles international taxation. She's come out with terrific guidelines and on taxes, and also her two daughters cleared the civil services. Apart from that, I came to JNU. She studied in Delhi School of Economics. So definitely mother did play a part, because had she not sent us to some of the best schools, I changed three schools in Lucknow in the 70s. Till the time I reached Loreto Convent, she made me take entrance exam every year. So jumping school to school till the time I was in the best. But yes, apart from that, I would say I would not undermine my father, because I would say he was the one who felt that he was in the police. So he would see how so much women, they were facing dowry deaths. Every day there would be something, and he would come and tell me, look, if you want to be strong, if you want to live a decent life, you must be economically empowered. So that was always there, telling me ki every day I'm seeing cases, and I realize how helpless women are in this country. Every day I'm registering FIRs of dowry deaths, rape. So father being in the police was also quite a reason for me to be so strong and to stand on my feet, I would say.
Thank you, ma'am. And now the question I'm passing to Kavita, ma'am.
Thanks. So basically, I just want to say to begin with that to anyone listening here, please don't think that anybody is strong, weak. We shouldn't, as women, as sisters, we should understand that the forces that are trying to keep us back are very strong, and so there are points at which all of us will feel weak. But I feel that there is a strength to be had in a collective assertion of our rights, and to when we treat each other with sisterhood and respect. So I don't really like to speak of myself or of anyone in terms of who is strong, who is weak. The other thing I want to say is that you asked me about my personal life. Well, actually, my mother, I mean, yes, she was, brought up as a pretty ordinary, in a pretty ordinary household. And she was married quite early by those standards. I mean, she was married when she was 21. And she wasn't in a hurry to be married. She didn't really know what she wanted to do in life. And so I think that the marriage was pretty much of a culture shock for her, because she found it quite traumatic to begin with. Not that there was any particular instance, but just the kind of suffocation which a young woman feels. And it's a credit due to my father that he also was an immature person, but a young man. But he basically did see his way to understanding his wife and eventually his two daughters. And basically, they were not trained. Neither of my parents had any training in some kind of formal feminism or politics or anything like that. But I think that they listened to their daughters, they listened to each other, and basically they were very democratic people. And therefore, they unlearned whatever they knew about bringing up daughters, bringing up girls, and basically brought us up in a very, very free kind of atmosphere without having us feel an undue burden of being women or being girls. But of course, society is always there to pack those burdens on your shoulders anyway. But yes, the parents were helpful in trying to, feel the weight of that burden a little less. And the biggest thing I'd have to thank them for is that I always had a feminist instinct, always, and I think a lot of young women do. When I came to college in Bombay, that was a sharp instinct, and my understanding of politics was also shaped by that instinct, because I instinctively felt very uneasy and very hostile to political parties or forces which would say, Indian women should be this way, should be that way. This is Indian culture. These are the rules. These are the regulations, etc. And so, and also, I was instinctively, I felt a pull towards equality and constitutional equality. And so the violence that I witnessed between 1990 and 93 in Bombay against the Muslim community, that was something which scarred me very deeply, which made me feel that, this is something like fascism in the 1930s in Germany. And, I need to speak. But I knew no politics. I did not know, I barely knew the names of political parties. I came to JNU and I was drawn by these instincts very automatically towards a feeling that I should do something. And that feeling basically warred with my natural, great sense of privacy and so on. But eventually, yeah, I mean, that sense of duty towards fighting, forces which were like Hitler's forces, that and the instinct to stand up for women's rights drew me to the left movement, the left student movement. I was a JNUSU joint secretary from a left organization, ISA, and a close friend was killed in Bihar by a ruling MP at that time, ruling party MP. And I guess that was a turning point because I felt that I did want to dedicate my life to, fighting for justice. And so eventually that's how I came into the women's movement and the CPIML as a party.
That's the same question I'm going to ask after this. That when you realize that you want to be a women activist, and you already answer for it, so the same question I'm asking to ma'am, Ava ma'am, when you realize that you want to be a women activist, or it just happened?
No, I would say, like I came from a state of Uttar Pradesh where patriarchy was at its peak. From childhood, we were always told that boys, the brothers have a upper hand, the men in the house are prime. So as a child, I was always a rebel in the sense I always thought, oh, how can I be inferior? I'm equally important. And I was always competing with all the boys and the brothers in the family. So I would say that was where this sense of justice and equality stemmed from childhood. But as I grew up and I realized that you may talk of equality, but the world is not ready to treat you as equal. So then I realized, how can I become equal? Then was education. I said that's the only way. And even now, when I tell my daughter, I said you can conquer the world with your education, with your excellence. Any adversity, the motto in our family is that turn every adversity into an opportunity. So this is where the activism comes in, that any day we take out a paper and we see what has happened here there, and we say, oh, these are the cases, we need to file a PIL. So that deep sense for justice is something which drives me, and what angers me is inequality, injustice. So I would say that was the basic composition. And like the recent case which we did, where we got compensation for the widows of manual scavengers. One day in Times of India, I read that these poor people had gone down, they were working somewhere else, but for mere 500 to 1000 rupees, they decided to clean the septic tanks of the neighboring society. They went down without masks and they all died. And there was a young mother with a 1 month old child, and I read it and I told my daughter, I said, look, let's go find out where they live. So in Mumbai, we tried to find out. We reached Kurla, we reached Chembur. We went and met these widows, saw their pitiable condition, and then we said, okay, we are going to fight their case. So this is what connects me to them, that any injustice I read, I walk the last mile. And throughout COVID, we were providing them with money to survive, to subsist. Their case was fought by us. And, eventually, Maharashtra, we call it a very progressive state. When the High Court realized in the last 27 years, the Supreme Court guidelines have not been followed. Not one widow has got any compensation. The Bombay High Court ordered 10 lakh compensation to each widow of manual scavenger. Not only that, when we showed them the guidelines that they are supposed to get, the children are supposed to get scholarships, they're supposed to get government jobs. So, this is what activism gets you. So even the result of activism is something which motivates us to keep going. So this is how I feel. And one of the reasons I agreed to this talk was I felt that it's a big platform to connect with people and tell them that ultimately, if any change is going to come, I don't believe in violence. When Kavita was speaking and I was thinking, even I went to JNU, but I was a free thinker. There was a third party, Congress, left, and the free thinkers, and we were the free thinkers. Like we felt that certain things need to become, but we didn't want to fight against the state. And I was a free thinker during my stay in JNU. But I feel even through the legitimate means, you can bring about a change. So the PIL which I filed, right to dissent, I will tell you that if you remember the young girl who was raped in Jammu Kashmir, and that little child who was kidnapped, put in a temple and raped, and then she died, we did a protest again for that in Carter Road. We were a couple of NGOs. When we went to the police station to get some permissions, they said you cannot use a loudspeaker. Now the option was, if you get 1,000 people without a loudspeaker, if you can't connect, you are a failure. But I said, no, we will go ahead with the protest. We did the protest. It was difficult talking to people without a mic, but fine. Next week, I filed a PIL in Bombay High Court and I named it Right to Dissent. And you will not believe it, the High Court came down heavily. The very DCP who had not given me permission had to come and stand in High Court for 3 days. And finally, the court said that you were wrong in denying her the use of loudspeaker, because all non-silent zones, and silent zones are zones which are next to schools, which are next to hospitals. Kato Road is not a silent zone. Believe me, the judgment which I got is now being used by so many people all over India. The court said you cannot deny her using a loudspeaker in non-silent zones. So the constitution gives us enough avenues to put up cases for activism, and that is what I've been doing. Be it the ramps for the disabled, I have got it through the High Court. Of course, it takes time, but yes, I am always the optimist.
Thank you, ma'am. Now the question is about the politics, as Kavita and ma'am is also talking about politics. So, like, generally it comes to our mind when politics has taken a turn to being sort in a religious texture. Because see, I was not there for last 11 years in India, and I am from AMU, Aligarh Muslim University, and I studied Urdu literature and everything. I have a lot of friends, I can say, in the Middle East. And so, whenever I felt that thing, that when I came back in 2020, so I felt that politics has taken actually a religious texture. So, do you think different religions make much difference in the condition of women?
Kavita, you would like to take a lead?
You want me to speak?
Yes,
You're asking me, Gitanjali?
yes.
It's not so much religion. See, the point is, religion has always been a part of society, part of life, and the constitution allows for religious practices and propagating religion and so on. So I don't think it's religion per se that is a problem. Religions tend to have conservative views about women and so on, but they also tend to change with time. And we have seen the practice of law also engaging with religious practices, and Shabarimala entry or instant triple talaq or whatever it is. So those things also change. I think that the problem we are having is much worse actually. It is to do with a very cynical use of religion that we are seeing across the world in a certain use of religion or identity in a majoritarian manner. So, for instance, in USA, you see white supremacist politics. Christian supremacist politics. You see this in US. You see it in France. You see it in Hungary. You see it in many countries. Likewise, in India, I think or in Pakistan, you see a certain form of Muslim supremacist politics, which is also very fundamentalist and which lays down laws for women which are deeply against their rights. In Afghanistan, you see Taliban rule, that's Muslim supremacist politics. In India, I think you see Hindu supremacist politics in action for the last several years. And I think that has been very, very disturbing and it's getting more so. Because it is, very deliberately, you're seeing no action possibly taken. For instance, when people make speeches saying that Muslim women should be enslaved and made to bear Hindu children. A person who gives a public speech like that, you have the laws in our country. We don't lack the laws. You have the laws to be able to book such a person for inciting violence, for hate speech, and all of that. Likewise, there are calls for genocide of minority communities. There should be action. But the weakest possible laws are used against these people because there is a
I think
don't want to use very sharp, strong laws against them. Whereas you find a situation where young women who are fighting for constitutional rights, and the most, you may agree or disagree, but the point is they have a right to peacefully protest a law. They have a right to even block a road. They do. People do it all over the country. And It shouldn't become a crime when Muslim girls or Muslim women do it, or when students do it or something. But they are booked under laws like UAPA, under which basically you don't get bail. It's very difficult to get bail, because the judge is prevented from looking into the merits of the case against you. He or she is only allowed to look at the accusation and see whether the accusation and the case actually match. So it's extremely difficult. So you have someone like Sudha Bharadwaj in a like case. She's a wonderful. She should be on this panel, in fact, rather than I, because she's actually someone who's worked in the area of law and worked for law to defend the most. The weakest sections of our country, Adivasi women, Adivasis who are, put in prison on wrong charges, or they are raped by security forces and there's no one to, assert their rights. She has done such wonderful work there. Now she's thrown into prison on some, absolutely ridiculous charge, but she doesn't get bail for 3 whole years. During the COVID years, she's in prison. So I feel that there is something very disturbing happening with democracy in our country, and I see it as a larger pattern of majoritarian and supremacist politics. And I say supremacist because when I say Hindu supremacist, you see, it has nothing to do with Hindu religion. The point is that when you start saying that some people have, one community has the first right to the country and the others must be subordinate, I think that is where the problem starts. And we are seeing that happen in so many countries, including ours.
In the meanwhile, when you are replying for it, Nishtha ma'am from the Vice Chancellor of HNLU is had joined us. So, happy Women's Day to you, ma'am, and thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Same to all of you.
And this is the panel because we are in the mid of the panel. We are expecting you in the mid. The beautiful ambience of your office from Himachal, and that's like we can see the wooden work of behind you. So, ma'am, welcome. And we were discussing about some because ma'am have I want to introduce again. Like Kavita ma'am is in the panel and very renowned name. Abha Singh ma'am is the very renowned name, and ma'am is from education sector. I also belong to education sector, so that in that way we all are completing the panel. Definitely, when someone else like who are working for the weaker section will get the chance to call them, will definitely again will meet. But I want that the formally I can start Rashmi if you permit with the
Of
ma'am.
course, of course.
Okay, so ma'am. As a I will start with ma'am for Nishtha ma'am, then we will join the panel that the discussion again. That ma'am, we were discussing about the journey of the female, the equality, feminist, and all these things, but we had not reached at that level. But I want to know your personal journey as to be like you are on a very high position of so role of universities and education sector in maintaining the gender equality or to like raise this gender equality and this like to maintain this gender equality. So what are the roles of universities? Because as we had seen, Kavita ma'am is the like the product of the university in that sense. For the like when she become activist, ma'am also have this personal experiences and the challenges she saw in the society. So over to you, ma'am.
Dr. Gitanjali and other team members, my views may be entirely different. I'll start from another footing. For me, before we talk about the role of the universities and other educational institutions, I think more important is the role of family. More important is the role of our mindset. And I must admit before all of you, I'm a poet by heart and I write poems on this. Just two lines, if I say, रब क्षेत्र शिक्षा का हो या कोई और नारी की प्रतिभा से नहीं हो सकती कोई और, which means, oh God, it may be any field, nobody can compete with females talent and intellect. See, first of all, we have to change the mindset at that level when the girl is to take birth. All of us know. If no such situation is there, why we needed the passage of PNDT Act in 1994, amended in 2002, and I can simply say 2016, again, Supreme Court had to issue guidelines in voluntary health association, implement this act. Even in 2021, Supreme Court had to say that if there is any case of such sex determination and abortion, this is violative of human dignity. Again, the same directions. Now, first thing is this. That means at the lowest level, at the unit level, I have to change my mindset. Even if I am a female, I must feel proud of myself. I must believe that I am born empowered. And then the role which is to be played by the parents. See, you see the hoardings, you hear the slogans, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Why? That means somewhere discrimination is there. And why we have plethora of cases where the females are granted equal rights in appointments, in employments. I don't know if those who are from the legal background, they know what was the situation Air India versus Nargesh Mirza, when is Air India service rules, these are discriminated, violative of womanhood and motherhood. Termination on first pregnancy. Was marriage allowed after 4 years of service? And recently, all of you must have read in the newspapers in 2020 that how permanent commission was granted to females in the army, Babita Punia's case, or in the navy, Annie Natarajan's case. And recently in 21, in Push Kaldra, the female was allowed to appear in the NDA examination. Again in 21, Lieutenant Colonel Nitasha Sharma's case, they found instead of obliging the Supreme Court following the guidelines, very discriminatory rules are framed. And Supreme Court really stated, observed, which hurts, that structures of the society are created by the males for males. Now, at this juncture, if we talk about the higher educational institutions, I think we still want to do a lot of work at the lowest level. Now, when you talk about this higher educational institutions, the role in my life, I must tell you that I belong to a very broad minded family. My maternal aunt, when she was 13 years old, this was in late 20s and or early 30s, when she spoke against parda system on a public platform. And so I never faced such kind of discrimination at home. But this kind of discrimination all of us have faced in the professional levels. I still remember, because before joining as vice chancellor, I was in Punjab University, becoming almost the senior most and being in number of committees. Initially, I was the sole female member in number of committees. I still remember how difficult it was to assert, to say what is right, what is wrong, to give your dissent. I'll just give one small example. At that time, I had just joined as assistant professor. There was some issue relating to the salary, and I had to go to the administrative block of the university. When I came back, somebody told me that clerk was saying, "Lipstick लगा के आ जाती हैं ये सारी ladies." Okay, what kind of comments? You can't differentiate. And I don't have any shame in sharing that when I joined as a vice chancellor, I had to fight a lot with the bureaucracy, all male chauvinism. In one situation, one person, one high official in PWD did not conform to what we wanted in the construction. I had to tell the chancellor. Now, in NLUs, Chief Justice of the High Court is the chancellor. The chancellor felt very angry, and he told the chief secretary to tell him to mend his ways. And he came to me and told me, "Ma'am, this was nothing but male chauvinism. हम सोचते थे एक औरत क्या कर लेगी." Just imagine. If still this is the situation, we personally know, because on different platforms we may talk very high. We may talk that we have the constitution, we have the constitutional protections, we have statutory protections, but again I'll emphasize that we have to change our mindset, each one of us.
Thank you, ma'am. Bringing back to the the audience, for the women is not safe. We all agree. Women is not safe anywhere. Like I can say, like there are some people are facing other problems, some females are facing other problems in the country. If it is example of Afghanistan or Ukraine, I can take the casualties in war. And these are the some of the facts which are accepted fact that women is not safe. So in, because we all three are from law background, so policies solutions are there. Like we know their laws are enough. If laws are enough, then how to implement it? Because most of the time when we researching on this, the only limitation we are writing that we have lot of laws, but implementation, the agencies are not there to implement these laws. So we have enough laws in India. So first question is, do we need laws? If we don't need laws, so how to implement? Because when this kind of panel discussion and when these kind of females from the societies are there, so we can get some solution from this panel, that like, okay, how to implement this? Because if crime is a power game, yes, Kavita ma'am, if crime and all these things are power game, if the power is given to women, it will solve the problem? Or this is the only solution? Like just enlighten me for this. And we can start with Kavita ma'am, then we'll come to Abba ma'am, and then we'll come to Nishta ma'am again.
See, I don't think that that is the issue, that it's about, of course, it's about power. But the point is not that we give power to women. How do you give power to women, right? Which women? So, some women, breaking the glass ceiling. What I like to say, I have a friend who's written a book about feminism for the
Yes, yes.
99%. So she says, some women will break the glass ceiling and the pieces of glass on the floor, which women are going to pick up those pieces? So, that is really the issue, that it's about a whole collective, and how do you set right social inequalities and economic inequalities. And those you can't do simply by saying, okay, we will give some women power, some women can get elected or whatever, right? It's about changing entire structures that are keeping inequality in place, right? So when you come to jurisprudence, I'll tell you that as a feminist activist, I think that the feminist movement has a uneasy relationship with the law and jurisprudence in India and probably elsewhere as well. They are not always on the same page, you see, because the purpose of law and lawmaking is not always, and I say this, I'm sure there'll be a lot of disagreement, but I don't think that the purpose of it is always justice. The point is that it is society, and society is reflected in parliament, and parliament makes laws. Now, the purpose of the law, I feel, is even the laws relating to women, is not all is rarely a feminist purpose. And by feminism, I mean, basically undoing certain hierarchies, undoing an unequal system. The law doesn't seem to want that. So the law often, is motivated by popular demands and popular misperceptions, and feminist voices are often completely sidelined. I think a very good example I can give is the Justice Verma Committee, which I remember how you spoke about the movement in 2012. I wasn't a face exactly. I was one of the feminists who engaged in that movement, who participated, knowing full well that a lot of new participants don't really know. They want to stand for justice, they want to speak against violence, but they don't even know what demand is a sensible or a good demand to make, right? So when it came to law changes, I was terrified. I was sure that if the government just listens to this clamor of voices, they will make changes which are on popular demand, and that's always a bad thing for lawmakers to do. Lawmakers should not just make demands listening to clamor. They should make laws, through proper, through a process where various sections of society, including minority voices, get heard. Basically, that should be the way of lawmaking. So then we engaged, and when the Justice Verma Committee was set up, we engaged with it, and they thankfully listened to us, that panel, and their recommendations reflected the feminist movement's positions on so many things. But then, those who made the laws ever since then, the government that was there then in 2013, as well as the government that has been there since 2014, कर रहे हैं, अरे आप तो कर ही नहीं रहे हैं, आप तो उसका उल्टा कर रहे हैं. you're doing what the Verma committee said don't do, like raising the age of consent, criminalizing juveniles, treating juveniles as adults in certain cases, death penalty for rape. All these things are things which the Verma committee explicitly said don't do, and you are doing all those things. So it becomes a very uneasy relationship, because it seems that those in power basically don't really care much about what is really going to help the victims of violence or domestic violence or other forms of gender based violence. They are more interested in how they can project that they have done something great, and how it will play with, and so they're not really that interested in, and so they do some lawmaking that is deeply damaging to the movement sometimes. Yeah, so that's a strange situation, but here it is. Yeah.
Ma'am, coming to Ava ma'am for this, for implementation of the said laws, which are I personally believe are enough laws, and like what else we can do to sensitize our administrative agencies, or sensitize the people who are dealing with this situation when some crime occurs, and how to implement these laws. That's I'm looking for forward for it to from Ava ma'am. That's like.
I'll first come to the dowry laws, 498A. Nobody is denying that even today dowry death takes place. In fact, the NCRB figures say that every 24 hours you have 23 dowry deaths. So that means almost one every hour. But on the other hand, a lot of 498A is being misused to knock off a lot of money. And the police have also realized, that this is a case where all rich people are involved. So immediately register an FIR, go pick up the bride's mother-in-law, sister-in-law, even far-flung relatives, and you will get a good amount of money. In fact, the law was being misused to such an extent by the police, I will not say the women, that the Supreme Court had to come forward and say that no arrest will be done till the time a proper inquiry has been done by a SP rank officer. In fact, court came forward and they said that 498 has become a legal terrorism. So, this is where I want to say that laws are there, but if these laws are misused, then even genuine cases suffer. So we need to see that when a law is made, what are the checks and balances, how it is not misused. Now, if I come to the POSH Act, and these things, because I am myself doing all these cases and I realize the problems. Now, if I come to sexual harassment at workplace, in fact, we have written to the WCD ministry. They are the ones who implement this law. But the problem which is happening is I have this case and I have filed a PIL in Bombay High Court that POSH prescribes for an internal complaints committee. So this ICC is everywhere. You also must be having in your college. So how do you protect the ICC members? Tomorrow, if a complaint comes from the head of that a complaint comes against the head of the institution, and you have a young professor who's made ICC chairman, will she have the courage to take a stand against the head of the institution? That's my question. This is where the implementation comes. In the private sector, in the corporate sector, you have the people who are ICC chairmen and members who report to the same bosses against whom complaints come. In fact, the case which I filed in the High Court, the ICC chairman, this lady had put in 18 years in a blue chip company because as ICC chairman, she took a stand and one of the vertical heads was terminated on her inquiry. This lady, ICC chairman, received marching orders 3 months after giving this report. And what it said, that your interpersonal relations are not good. So the PIL which I filed in Bombay High Court, and the Chief Justice was kind enough to ask for a reply from WCD Ministry. But to my shock, WCD Ministry says that we've misplaced the letter. So again, we've written to them. It's been almost 2 years. So what we are demanding is, till the time you don't make the ICC chairman and ICC members their position safe, do you think you will get justice? Do you think a POSH Act will be effective if the ICC members themselves will be terminated? So, what I'm trying to say, that the laws may be there, but the implementation is not thought of. Kavita also is right when she says that when laws are made under pressure, you don't see how effective they will be. Like you said, if a juvenile in the age of 16 to 18 commits a heinous offense, offense. By heinous offense, they meant that the juvenile commits rape or murder. He will be tried under the IPC, under the adult law. So I got a case where this juvenile had committed an offense which should be tried as an heinous offense. We went to the juvenile board, and the juvenile board said that no, it says only if the heinous offense where the punishment is more than 7 years. The conviction is not going to take place right now. You don't now, the distinction is between up to 7 years or more than 7 years. We have written to the concerned ministry, we have written to the home department. It's been 3 years, I have not received a reply. And hence, you may say that heinous offense is this, but no juvenile is taken to the adult law IPC because of these technicalities. So my earnest request is that when these lawmakers make law, please involve lawyers, involve activists, involve the right people who have an idea. Just because you're sitting in the parliament, you've been elected, it is not your forte. So definitely, I would say that these laws, if we were talking of feminist jurisprudence, these laws have been made. Either they have been hijacked by corrupt police because they are trying to knock off money, thereby weakening. So as a result, today there is a stay on immediate arrest even after an FIR in a dowry law under 498A. So many genuine cases are also suffering. Then again, if you come to the posh law, because the ICC members themselves, they do not have a protection. They, in fact, what we have demanded is that NCW should be brought in, and if any ICC member is transferred or terminated, the report should go to the WCD ministry. The report should go to the NCW. In fact, the posh law also talks of that there is a local committee under the district collector. So, like when I'm implementing this and I'm realizing the loopholes, nobody comes to change. Nobody has the time even to go back and revisit these laws. So definitely, implementation is a big issue. Making of the laws, you need to not make laws under pressure, but you need to, if any law is made, please revisit it after a year. Let them make it mandatory that NCW and Women and Child Development Ministry is going to look into these laws which affect women. And also, I would say judiciary is overworked, overburdened, in the sense there are a lot of vacancies. So that also delays. In fact, today only I'm writing a letter which I will be just now uploading to the Chief Justice of India. In fact, I am pained to say that as we celebrate Women's Day, there is this young mother who's been in jail in Taluja Thane jail for 4.5 years. She has not got bail. We've been trying for her bail in High Court. In fact, I mentioned this case last week in front of Chief Justice also, that please, I want this case to be heard. And because her husband had problems with an IS officer, she was dragged in by the likes of Pradeep Sharma. They put makoka on her. She was a lactating mother, was arrested because her husband was involved in a false extortion case. She was weeping in the court yesterday. She said, "What is it? People with rape and murder have gone out on bail, but I am in jail for the 4.5 years. I can't hold my son also in my arms." So definitely we have laws, but we have not been very sensitive towards their implementation to effectively getting justice. So a lot of injustice is taking place. When we talk of UAPA, law of sedition, I feel, when was sedition made? It was done when we were slaves, when we were fighting for independence. Now, in a free country, why do we need these sedition laws? They should go. If Sapura Zargar, a pregnant girl, has a UAPA slapped on her. In fact, I did make a video on that, and I have a channel called People's Lawyer where I try to put these things out, like custodial deaths, like slapping of false charges. So I feel we really require a bigger activism now. Not just a few handful of kavitas and abhas and here and there. You require a consolidated effort to ensure that law is transparent. You don't have the likes of Shraddha Mangle struggling to get bail. Their case has not been heard. Bombay High Court, in fact, in 6 times in front of me, the judges have said, "Not before me." Now, where do you go? So somewhere we need a very independent judiciary. We require very strong voices. We require a very free media. Not the media which is governed by TRP, not a media which has leanings. And as you said, religion, yes, constitution does not talk of religion. Our preamble says we are a socialist, secular, democratic republic. So we need to maintain our secularism at any cost, and we need to be fair. When the constitution talks of justice, I think justice has to be above all. And for that, Nisha ji rightly said, I was listening to her. She said, yes, education, mindset, PCPNDT. I will tell you, I was speaking at Oxford University, and that's where I said, in the last 10 years, only 1,000 cases have been filed under PCPNDT when we have lost millions of girls feticide, and conviction is just 100. 100 people have been charged. So there is such an irony that this law is there, but a woman who loses her child because it's a female fetus does not have the courage to come forward and lodge a complaint, because she knows that today I've lost my girl child, tomorrow I will lose my home because my husband will not stand by me when my mother-in-law or the patriarchy kicks me out of the house. So definitely the law is there, but then we need to hold hands and ensure that if a woman comes and complains that I was forced to abort my child because it was a girl child, then where are we? Are we ready as lawyers to take her case free of cost? Are we ready as NGOs to come and do a dharna outside her house that her in-laws cannot throw her out? So we require an active public debate. We require citizen movement. I would say the biggest thing on Women's Day is that we need to hold hands and we need to come out and help these women, because a lot of people are not ready to go file a complaint. And then even if they file a complaint, the judicial process is so expensive, it is so delayed that you don't get justice. So yes, laws are there. We don't need more laws. We only need these laws to be rectified if there is a lacuna, as I said, in the posh law, in the 498A. But at the same time, we need people also to be active. You just cannot leave everything on the state, that if your neighbor's wife is being beaten, only if the police comes she will be protected. You have to step out, and that is what Nisha ji was saying, that we as citizens also have a responsibility.
Um, Thank you, ma'am. Ava, ma'am. Coming to Nishtha, ma'am, before coming to Nishtha, ma'am, just I want to ask, ma'am, does this government, I'm talking about the government text, I'm not from any party or any political party, but I want to know, does this government really wants to bring a gender equality, or it is another another issue of the political manifesto, normally for like when people make illiteracy as an agenda, the education as an agenda, beti bachao beti padhao, like beti padhao beti bachao, or this is the another agenda of gender equality, that like, okay, or is it possible in this like in this state of our India that they will bring gender equality, or we will bring gender equality? Is it possible?
Dr. Gitanjali, why should we say this government? Is pertaining to any and every government. And for the government, we are also voters, just numbers. And all of us know, it's not today. Long back it was said, politics is a game of scoundrels. Because all of us know what are the motives. It's not that we can just focus on any particular government. And every institution, it may be political institution, it may be any organ of the state, there are combinations of good and bad. There are good people who really work. There are people whose motive are different. So it's better we don't enter into such a controversial issue. But of course, I believe that all the three organs of the state, they have to join hands in protecting women, in continuing with their empowerment. Whether I talk about the legislature part, legislature now, I'll say there's no dearth of laws as such. And in fact, the grand norm, the sanctum sanctorum, the constitution is there. And so many international conventions are there to which we are a party. Laws are there to protect us. My focus always remains on one thing, that is how we take the laws, how we implement the laws, what is our mindset. Like I can give you the example. We have, as Abaji also talked about this protection of women from sex harassment part. I remained chairperson of Punjab University Committee Against Sex Harassment. I know how many false complaints were also filed. And perhaps when we refer to this protection from sex harassment act, or protection from domestic violence act, or dowry prohibition act, or 498A, these have been misused like anything. And I'm just reminded of a decision by the Supreme Court in 2005, Sushil Kumar Sharma. Now, Supreme Court said we have to see that legal terrorism through misuse of these laws is not unleashed. This is really shameful. First thing is, I know we are empowered, but because of certain circumstances, certain reasons, we suffer on many accounts. The practical picture has been shown by Abaji. So now what we require it, but what is happening? Just see, we can take the example like what happened in 2021. We have the decision of Aparna Bhatt versus state of Madhya Pradesh. Now, here the Madhya Pradesh High Court made a condition of tying Rakhi by the rape victim to the culprit, condition for granting bail. Just imagine. And here, Supreme Court had to issue directions that the courts, the judges must desist from expressing certain narrow traditional viewpoints like women are weaker sections, males are head of the household, women must show good character, and if the women are smoking or they're alcoholic, that shows that you're giving advances to other person. Now, just imagine that such kind of guidelines to be issued for the judiciary. And at the same time, I think we need to remind ourselves the decision by the Bombay High Court, that skin to skin test. It was really astonishing, shocking that such kind of a test can be laid on, and that too by a female judge. Thank God this was not accepted by the Supreme Court. And it's not that we just confine to this. I can even refer to certain natural rights. Why we talk about that government should do this, or govern it should be government's agenda. It should be agenda of each one of us. Now, I think we need to remind ourselves how in Lata Singh's case in 2006, Supreme Court had to say that every person has the right to marry a person of one's choice. Why we are submitting to honor killing, that, and we are expecting that the Supreme Court should condemn, like what happened in Arumigam Sirvai. The Supreme Court had to say that there is nothing honorable in honor killing. In fact, I think all of you will agree with me. I fail to understand how can you protect your honor by killing the honor of the family. On the one hand, we worship goddesses. On the other hand, we are killing our daughters. And not only this, otherwise also, if we look into the role of the family, role of the parents, they are value socializers. Now, when a girl says, I want to join this profession, now there will be a lot of discussion. Should she join or should she not? And they'll say, if she has to continue with this after marriage, just imagine. Do we think if the son will have to continue this after marriage? No. So these small things which can be settled, I'll always say, at the family level, then we don't have to talk in these programs what is required at the national level. Uh, Endless examples are there, but this is my view. We should not allege anything against the government as such. This we have to come to the front. We have to fight for our rights. We are empowered, but so many laws are there. But I hope Kavita ji, Abha ji, Gitanjali ji, everybody will agree with me that ultimately we have to snatch this power. And I was so impressed by Kavita ji as well as Abha ji, how she was getting involved in the cases she is practicing. Now, this is what is required. Whatever profession we are, if I am academician turned administrator, you are advocate. So, within that domain, Now we have to work very, very hard. I remember what Maya Angelou said: if one woman stands for herself, she stands for all the women. But here I would say that we should not misuse, because as I said, these laws are being misused like anything. Because I don't know, how can you file a false complaint of sex harassment? How can you file a false complaint of domestic violence?
Um,
So,
Thank you, Nishta ma'am. As I'm representing the audience, so there is one question which is remain unanswered from, and this question is to Kavita ma'am. As I'm representing here the audience, the whole, that we have started with the topic of feminist jurisprudence, and when we are talking about feminism and women rights are the concept. Sometimes it seems like it's the same, it's a thin lining. So can you tell us the difference between women rights and feminism? Is it the same thing, Kavita ma'am?
Yeah, I don't want to really go into that because this is
okay.
not. I don't think that is the topic. So let me first sort of speak on the questions you asked the other panelists
Yes,
because I
yes,
do have
please,
a
please,
lot to
please,
say
ma'am.
on that, and this is really basic. The thing you asked me now, just now, people can find answers for themselves. Yeah, do that homework themselves. But I think that what I want to say is I'm very glad that. Abhaji basically pointed out that with 498A, the misuse is on part of the police. Okay. And the police are known to misuse many laws. That is why I find it quite prejudicial on part of the Supreme Court to use very loaded terms like legal terrorism only for laws which are there to protect women who are facing a certain kind of terrorism in their lives, right? The law is intended to protect them. Now, the woman is going and making a complaint. Now, she doesn't choose what law is applied. She just gives an her FIR. She is giving her version of what has happened to her. It is the police that decides that I'm going to make this case into such and such a case of this. I'm going to invoke this law and who I'm going to arrest. Those are not things that the woman judges for herself, right? So, what case is to go into mediation? What case is going to go into the criminal system? These are things in which the police has immense power, which it is misusing. And it is doing that. You mentioned Safura Zargar Abaji. Absolutely right. I mean, who decides? The police has decided that she should be charged with UAPA, where the courts are repeatedly saying that there is no evidence against all these people who are arrested. But under UAPA, because there is that loophole because of a Supreme Court judgment that has said that the judge is prevented from actually looking into the merits of the evidence value against that person. So you are using UAPA in order to substitute for the lack of performance of the police in finding the actual culprits of a riot, right? So that is another misuse, but you're not saying legal terrorism there. Are right, anti-terror law you're using against a pregnant woman, you're using against women, you're using against the minorities who were actually the victims of the riots. You are catching the wrong people from both communities. All those things you are not going into. You are not calling that legal terrorism. You are calling the women's law. So I think that is a huge problem. I don't think there is any evidence before us. If there is evidence, I'll consider it. But till now, and I have looked for this, I have looked for it. There is no evidence that sexual harassment false complaints are being filed. I'll come to rape complaints in a minute. But there just isn't evidence, so we can't talk about that, right? Now, in rape complaints, there is actually a huge, nearly 40% of rape complaints in the reaching trial courts in Delhi and Bombay. There was a study in 2014 and 15 which showed that 40% of these cases are false cases. But what kind of false cases are they? Who is filing them? And why is the police accepting them? Well, it's not the women. They are false cases because the woman there is shouting that she's not a victim of rape. She's saying, I have had, my parents are torturing me. They are beating me up. They are starving me. They are broken my spine. They are doing all kinds of things to prevent me from loving. These are honor crimes. They are not killings because it is not yet. In order to avoid killing, the girl is running away. Okay. And when she runs away, then the police doesn't say, we won't file your case when the parent comes. They're saying, come, आइए बैठिए, we'll file your case, we'll call it rape, we'll go collect the husband, we'll collect the woman, we'll put the woman forcibly in a shelter home because the parents say that she is a minor and she will be kept there until she agrees to go back to her parents' house. So you are expecting extraordinary levels of endurance and courage from this woman, who is an ordinary woman, whose only crime is that she has fallen in love, breaking the rules of caste and community. So and this is routine, and in this form of violence, which has no name, we don't have a law to describe this violence by the caretakers, by the guardians, by the parents, by against this woman. In this, not only the police participates, there is active participation by political groups, and there is active participation even by certain judges, magistrates, etc. Okay, because instead of taking the action they should, they are very often participating in at the lower level. Okay, it's only when months of incarceration goes by and somehow the whole matter is appealed in higher court, that there is a release. And as I'm saying, just now Nishtaji absolutely correctly said that, what is this notion of killing people because they're in love, right? What is this? Is this a civilized society? But what is this civilized society?
Hello. Ma'am has lost connection, but ma'am will continue in the meanwhile.
Yeah, I think Gitanjali, I will continue complete this thing, because when she was talking about this young children eloping, it's so sad that I have gone to these juvenile homes where these young boys who have eloped with girls who are less than 18, and they are termed as rapists, and when they come to these prisons and these remand homes, they are called rapists. And they are not rapists, because they have, the only crime they've committed is falling in love with a girl who's under 18, because they are students of class 11th and 12th. So yes, we immediately need to rectify this mistake. We need to ensure that under family pressure, and the girl also comes back and says, yeah, this guy, he took me away, he kidnapped me. And when she has gone voluntarily, so definitely this needs to be looked into. And also another thing which now changes need to be made is under 498A, because you have cases of rape where you say, oh, this man has been raping me for 2 years. And I wonder how these empowered working women, how can someone rape them for 2 years and you keep quiet? But then the definition is so defective. It says having a physical relationship under the false promise of marriage. So if somebody proposes to you, where are you compelled to go and sleep with him? That is your Western outlook, or it's your permissive lifestyle. So, and then when the marriage doesn't take place, you go and file a case of rape. So I think the definition of rape under 375 needs to be corrected. We need to come together, since you all are working in this field, you all are institutions. Your NLU Himachal can also work on this, put up a paper to Law Commission that, look, we don't want this definition of rape. When on one hand you talk of death penalty for rape, you talk of life imprisonment for rape, then how can you have
Yeah,
someone saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me just finish, Abha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely, you're
I'll
absolutely
just
right.
interrupt. Dr. Gitanjali, I have another
Yes,
program
ma'am,
and
you
I'm
have
going
another engagement. I will take up this, ma'am. Give your message to our audience, and then we will continue with Kavita, ma'am. Then, I want to hear from both of you.
Okay.
I can give message to all the daughters, of course, to the sons, because we have to groom our sons in such a way that our daughters are protected, and to the daughters, that we are empowered and we have to preserve our empowerment. If the laws are framed for our safeguarding, for our protection, if the Supreme Court is giving a number of interpretations which are in our favor, and nowadays I think all the institutions are women friendly, no doubt. Still, we are suffering, as I heard, and it's true, Kavita ji and Abaji. But again, I'll say that at least we should not be part and parcel of non-implementation of laws or misuse of laws. And I can just finally conclude with one verse of my own written poem. ए रब में नारी हूँ, ए रब में नारी हूँ, रिश्ते गूंथूं तो निले है। ए रब में नारी हूँ, रिश्ते गूंथूं तो निले है, रिश्तों की लाज जो टूटी तो प्रलय है। I think we must have
Thank
a
you.
real equality where we have a balanced relationship at all the fronts with men folk, because Neither men have to compete with us nor we have to compete with them. We have our roles which we can coordinate and perform. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishtha ma'am, and we will continue with as we were Kavita ma'am
Yeah.
is talking about the issue.
Thank you, Nishta ji. Thank you,
Thank you,
Nishta ji.
Ji.
It was
Thank
lovely to
you. Thank
listen
you.
to you.
Nice
Yeah.
meeting all of you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Nishtaji.
absolutely. Thank you. Namaste. Yeah, I'll just finish very quickly the points that I was
Take your
making.
time.
So I'm saying that you see, these laws then become, there's been a study of the use of this anti-conversion law in Uttar Pradesh by the Leaflet magazine. So they did a detailed study of all the cases that had come up. So it's not always, the point is that under that law, anybody who is converting a religion has to apply to the for permission from the district magistrate, etc. So they studied all those matters where somebody had come. Most of those cases were cases of couples who were asked, now the couple has an additional hurdle to pass where they have to ask permission to marry. Okay. We all know under the Special Marriage Act, although Supreme Court has said that 1 month waiting period should not be there, we all know that that 1 month waiting period is still being invoked in most of the places. And so when a couple fears violence, they tend to try and convert. And you find equal number of cases where Muslim girls are trying to convert to Hindu faith to marry, they are also going for permission. But there is a selective application of law where the permission is being denied in cases of where a Muslim man is involved and a Hindu woman is involved. And these are really, really, this is a very terrible kind of thing where we already saw that NCRP data. Most of the men who are being falsely accused of rape there or the boys, are basically cases of interfaith and intercommunity marriage. Likewise, the JJ Act thing where Bhaji mentioned, you see, the problem with that law is not, its non-implementation is a different thing. I think it should go, because you see what happens is, again, the discretion comes in there, that you are saying that wherever there is a case where where you're accused of rape, and rape is 7 years is the minimum crime. So if you're accused, then you get treated as an adult. The problem there is that in most of these cases that I'm mentioning, even where it is because of the POXO law also, which treats 18-year-olds under 18s as minors. The point is that over there, if the girl is accused, both are juvenile. Now the point is, if it's an interfaith dosti hai, intercaste dosti hai, POXO is invoked, and the boy may get charged as a rapist and have as a sexual offender because as a child he has been friendly with a girl. Okay, a similar age kind of thing, and this is happening particularly with Dalit boys, etc. It's a massive problem because we know that this misuse of law is happening because of the unfortunate parental beliefs about caste and community, which we should not want as a country. The point is that the lawmakers ought to be, if they were just, if they were good lawmakers, they ought to make laws to protect from this, not laws that will empower and enable the misuse in this manner, right? So unfortunately, I think it's all going in the wrong direction. My last point on that is also that in courts also, you see, where it is stranger rape, where the rape case is, the accused is a stranger. Courts often are happy to hand out convictions, and often they are happy to hand out even death penalty and this and that. The point is that that is a tiny minority of cases. It's not even maybe 7% or something of cases, maybe even less, is actually stranger rape. In most of the cases of rape, actually, people don't complain. Cases of child rape, people don't complain because the accused is a family member. The accused is a teacher. The accused is a close and influential person in the community, etc. Or the accused is somebody who has been in a relationship with you, and he has overstepped his boundaries and attacked you. So, in all such cases, what is happening is that the courts are behaving pretty badly. Let me give you two examples. Tejpal case, woman judge, horrendous judgment, where basically she has acted as though the complainant is in the dock. She has to remember everything from 7 years ago. But this guy, I mean, you are making all the excuses. The judge is going to make excuses which the defense has not made on part of the accused. Okay, and all kinds of things, very, very sexist language, etc. The Mahmoud Farooqi judgment, trial court convicts, and says that it's a very credible witness and this is a justified use of the law. High Court acquits. How does it acquit? It acquits by using something that is not there in the law at all. The law does not permit. So the High Court says that yes, this is a very credible witness and there is all this, we don't find any problem with the evidence. But there is evidence, so we are accepting the witness's claim that she kept saying no and this man went ahead anyway. But he's saying, I think the man, poor thing, didn't understand. So basically, her no, she's educated and all, no. So her no was a too feeble a no, probably. So feeble no judgment. Acha, ye kahan law mein likha hai? Where is it written in the law that your no must be of this decibel? In fact, in the law, as long as it is not an affirmative yes, the man is supposed to assume no, right? But now you are going to say that this woman has to give a lecture on understanding yes and no to the guy when he is in the process of raping her. What is this complete nonsense? And this was appealed in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, giving all kinds of sexist logic, did not even admit it for challenge. So this is a terrible problem, I think, where we are facing a remarkable difficulty in feminist voices. To dur ki baat, feminist voices to rehne do. The point is, even the basic application of law under the law, being able to have a sensible conversation on what is the law and trying to understand the impact of the law and the interpretation of the law. I think that we are very, very, very far behind. Where in general, the law is being used quite damaging in a very damaging way to women.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. And though you are not from the law background, and the study and like your experiences in this field actually remarkable, and the audience is might be benefited, and definitely I'm sure that Rashmi also wants to ask something to ma'am, and that is going to be the last question because we have taken enough time. Abba ma'am, if you want to add on something on this, you can add, and in between Rashmi can also get the chance to ask a question because we are a big fan of both of you. So I had get the chance, but Rashmi didn't get the chance to ask to you.
So I think Rashmi can ask the questions and then I'll come. Rashmi.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, as I would want to take a pointer from where Gitanjali ma'am left the question from Kavita ma'am. I would actually want to ask that question from you, Abha ma'am, because you identify as a women right activist as well as you are a lawyer. So, we understand the legal positioning of women rights in India as well as we understand what feminist jurisprudence is all about. Can you say that both are the same thing? Because there is always this misconception, I can say, or understanding that feminism is about women empowerment or only women rights. So I would want you to clarify a little bit on that as to how the two things go hand in hand together.
In fact, there I will come out, as a lawyer, when I was seeing how justice is being eroded, I did come out with this book which Gitanjali talked of, and it has a lovely cover of a woman on it, and it says Stri Dasha or Disha. So Dasha is what? Your status. And
Condition.
Disha will be when your justice is given out to it. And then only, so once when you look into Dasha, and then you have the movement, and then if something positive comes out of it, that will be your freedom movement or whatever. So what feminism again, if I go by it, there would be a radical feminist would say we don't believe in laws, we feel all laws have been made by men, and they have always tilted towards them. But here you would have the Supreme Court saying no, 498 is being misused. Kavita rightly says that legal terrorism, you don't talk of laws where they have been misused by men, but only a 498A you call it legal terrorism. So there'll be two types of feminism. One would be liberal, one would be radical. But ultimate aim of everything, see, ultimate aim is to get justice for women. Ideology may be different. If you go into history, you had Sati, a movement, but at that time it was men who came forward and they said no. Raja Ram Mohan Roy and others who came and said we must have a law to ban sati, we must have a law for widow remarriage. So gradually, step by step, we have got leverage, and we have got space for women where equality has come in. But But the biggest thing which I would say, forget feminism, forget women rights activism, issue is constitution. And that credit goes to Baba Sahib Ambedkar for and others who were there, but he was the main person who got this. And it is the constitution which needs to be upheld. Judiciary also at times, I would definitely say, some judgments I am appalled. In fact, I remember in one of the cases, I said there is blood on the hands of judges, and people said, I'm there, sure there's going to be contempt against me, and I was on tenterhooks. But at times, you get so appalled, you feel, how can such a judgment come? Like the judgment where Justice Pushpa Ganeriwala in that POSCO Act said, no, touching the girl child through the cloth is not a POXO offense. In fact, she was upgraded after giving that faulty judgment, but then Supreme Court stepped in and she didn't get her regular promotion as a High Court judge. But what I'm trying to say, if you are splitting law like this, it even it was not intended to be like that. So there is a very thin line. Feminism is more of a debate, and I feel the women rights movement is derailed by talking only about feminism. In fact, people try to weaken our movement by giving it the touch of feminism, feminist movement. No, feminism is not something which is going to give you a clearer perspective, because it was bra burning, as we talked of. People immediately say, oh, women who smoke cigarette, they are the feminists. No, and we would like to call ourselves activists, because so feminist and activist, ultimately everybody wants to go towards gender justice. We want women to get their due in society. We want that laws, see, even if today parliament we say adi abadi, but are we there in the parliament when the laws are made? When you talked of temple entry, or you talked of Shabrimala, the judgment, it was only Justice Indu Malhotra came at a later end. But when it was Shabrimala here, it was a bench of 3 male judges. So even laws pertaining to women are being decided by men. So, and when you raise that, you say, oh, even if we
I'll be
come to
with you in a second.
Yes.
even if you come to judiciary, there are barely judges. It would be 10 is to 90, the number of female judges versus male judges. But then they say they are not women lawyers. If you don't have the substantial number of lawyers, women lawyers, how will they become judges? Now I come to the crux. Lawyers come to me and say, "Arey, ma'am, nobody wants a lawyer bahu. So very difficult for a girl lawyer to get a husband." So everything is intertwined. For
Yes.
debate, we can talk of radical feminism, liberal feminism, we can talk of activism, but end of the day, if we are treated equal, Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of laws, is ultimately what I want, I hanker for, and everything should lead to that. And right to life, Article 21 means right to live with dignity. And Supreme Court has said innumerable times that dignity is equally important. For me, Article 21 is not only living that I get food to eat and a house to live. I must be respected. I must be allowed to marry the person I love. So many times the courts have allowed the girl to stay with her husband, even though the parents are saying it's not a marriage. They say no, she's an adult, she can decide. So, Article 21, right to privacy, who I choose to marry. So, if the constitution is upheld, if if police, in fact, so much was our frustration with the justice system when we saw how the police was misusing the law. My daughter, who's passed out from National Law School, Bangalore, worked with me for 2 years, and when we saw the manner in which police arrested people, and there was no, even judges were not listening. So many times we went for bail, and we would and our case had merit. But because there were politicians involved, there were important people involved, the trial courts were not ready to give bail. Such was my daughter's disgust coming from National Law School, Bangalore. She said, Mom, I'd rather be a cop and get justice. And this year, Kavita, she's gone and joined the Indian police. She's doing training. She said all the laws are in the book, but it is not being implemented because there is a cop who files a false FIR. And she said that I'm going to go and improve this justice system. I'm going to ensure that corruption, the biggest, I would say, evader of justice today to women is corruption in the police. But we don't talk about it. We have to link that a corrupt cop causes more damage to a woman than a mother-in-law in the house who troubles her for dowry.
Yes.
There are cases where I have visited jails. My Ransomer NGO does a lot of work in the jails. We have provided vocational skills, in Lucknow, Jaunpur, all these areas. And I was shocked when I found these young women with little children in the jail. And it turns out that a false dowry case or a true dowry case, every woman in the house is arrested, be it the sister-in-law, be it the brother's wife. That means there is no woman in the house to look after those children, and hence those little children are also in the jail, and there is nobody to go for their bail. The system has become heartless. So again, as I said, we require a movement, we require NGOs, and now these NGOs are not being funded or there's not funds, but we definitely require a very strong public movement. Anyone who can protect the cause of women is women like us, women like you, students who can uh, raise their issues, who can raise money to get them bail. Now they are there in a case of dowry, none of them get bail because there's nobody to fill the bail bond for them. So ultimately, an aware society, a society which is ready to raise these issues. Even if we can touch 3 lives, that's more than enough. We've done our duty. So this is what I would like to talk.
Thank you, Abha ma'am. Yes, Kavita ma'am, your final message to
I
our audience.
Yes, my final message. Absolutely. I think that I just wanted to add one thing, which in response to what you're saying and about the larger issue, which also kind of takes off from where Abha ma'am left. I think that, well, I think that you see, feminism is the movement. The goal can be constitutional equality, and we know that that equality, doesn't come about just by passing a law or even by a court case or whatever. Essentially, women get the support to fight a case and so on, even to speak up when there is a collective, with them to give, on which they can draw the courage when their spirit is being beaten down, right? So I think that, and also the movement is there to point to issues in society which the law has overlooked and so on. Of course, all those issues come under the ambit of the Constitution. We argue for them as constitutional rights, but it's not easy to achieve them unless there is a movement, right? And basically, where I wanted to take off from the point which Abhama mentioned about the not getting bail or not being able to post bail, etc. That's actually a large structural problem, a systemic problem. I would encourage my audience to look for articles by Dr. Pratiksha Bakshi, who is a legal law and governance scholar, who has written widely about the issue of basically under trials in our system not getting bail, and especially the situation with women under trials in particular. And 70% of people in our prisons are under trials. Of course, the NCW has given directions that women under trials, even if they are charged under heinous crimes, etc., they should get bail, especially during the COVID period. But that is not implemented. 3 years we are now, and women are still in prison, where in exceptional cases like Safura's case, a pregnant woman is given bail. But largely you are finding a situation where the elderly, the women, pregnant women, women in other situations, people with health issues, disabled persons, they are being kept in prison quite unnecessarily, because keeping under trials in prison should be a rare exception, where you keep only when the under trial may be in a position, if he or she comes out, to do harm to witnesses, to kill a witness or something, or to meddle with, or is a powerful person, she's a powerful person who can meddle with evidence. If that is not the case, just give bail. It is a terrible, terrible situation, and these are large structural issues which I think the human rights movement, and these are movements which do it thanklessly. Human rights
Very,
movement,
very.
women's movement, right? We are raising these issues and we get cursed for it because you're told, oh, you don't want justice, because justice is कि वो jail में सड़े. So if you start speaking about the rights of the person incarcerated in jail, you become someone who is speaking up for criminals. The whole point is that person is not yet a criminal, is not proved to be a criminal. Your punishment should not happen before your trial. That's the whole point about getting bail. But no, you see, now you have a system which has evolved, which is treating the process as the punishment. And that is, of course, encouraged by draconian laws under which it becomes even more difficult to get bail than usual, right? When I know the times I have been in prison, because of when I've participated in movements, I've been in prison as an under trial more than once on 3 occasions, and on all those occasions I used my time inside to speak to women inside, and I was struck by the humiliating circumstances inside. If prison is supposed to be if punishment is supposed to be something that helps you to recognize your mistake and to overcome that and come out better, then I think even Tihar jail, where supposedly a lot of reforms have happened, that is not what's happening. It is a very, very terrible system which is intended to humiliate. It is a very violent system where violence is done to women with no consequences. There is no oversight happening there, no sense. It's extremely bad. And to keep people there, who are just under trials. किसी ने 20 रुपया मैंने चुराने का आरोप था on some tribal women. They were accused of picking up somebody's pocket and picking a wallet which had 20 rupees in it. Now that woman had been in prison for nearly 2 years, she and her companions. What is it, what? And the same problem, that she was too poor to, she had no one on the outside who to contact. They are a roaming nomadic group. They had no one to contact for bail. So I think that I wish that those who are listening, especially if you're students of the law or involved in the law in any form, please let us agree to take on these matters with much greater emphasis. Because these, rather than death penalty are the things that will get justice out to people, where you can actually impact the lives of ordinary women who are for no real, big reason have found themselves on the wrong side of the law, right?
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. Rashmi, like anything you want to add or ask to ma'am?
No, ma'am. I think we are good.
Both are passionate women. We all are passionate, and we are listening for more than an hour. And we were discussing about women rights, so you can see that like they are speaking from the heart and their experiences. So, on behalf of the audience, I want to thank, and on behalf of LEDx, Rashmi wants to thank formally to the panel. So, Rashmi, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Nishta ma'am has left the panel earlier, so I will first take her name. So to Nishtha ma'am, to Abha ma'am, and to Kavita ma'am, I cannot think of a better manner of celebrating Women's Day than to understand the actual position of women rights and women position in India and even the world. So I thank both of you and of course Gitanjali ma'am as well for moderating this session. It has been a great learning experience for us all. All the people who have been in attendance, I've been reading all the comments, all the messages, and I can see that all the law students have learned a lot. And I'm sure we all are going away from this session with a lot to think about. So I thank you both for that, for your invaluable time. And I look forward to being associated with you in the future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to
Thank
the
you.
organizers, both of you, to Gitanjali for sharing this, and Abhaji, it was an absolute pleasure to be with you and to hear your views and your experiences. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Kavita. It was lovely. We've met on so many TV shows,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Now I don't go anymore.
yeah, so this
Yeah.
has been the longest conversation.
Yeah.
Lovely
Yeah,
getting to know
absolutely.
you and
Yeah.
Gitanjali and Rashmi.
Same,
I think
same.
you've done a very good job. And I think make your students come out and do some pro bono work. If
Yeah,
some of your students come out and do, I think that would be the biggest outcome of today's talk.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, both of you, and happy Women's Day again.
Happy
Yeah.
Women's Day.
Thank you, Rashmi.